It's 1997, and Tiger Woods is in a sudden death playoff against Tom Lehman. Lehman shoots first on a par 3.
That isn't even close.
And hits his ball directly into the water. Now Tiger's up. This is Tiger's tournament to lose. All he has to do is hit a safe shot, far away from the hole and far away from the water.
Well, I think the one thing you can guarantee now is Tiger, this ball will be 20 or 30 yards to the right of the pin. Don't you think, Peter Allis?
But that's not what he does. This is Love Your Work, and I'm David Cadavy. The hole is way on the left side of the green, near the water. There's water short, there's water left, where Tom Lehman's shot went. The smart play is just hit the ball onto the green, way right of the hole, so there's no chance it goes in the water. Then Tiger can putt twice for par and win the tournament.
Well, if he follows him into the water, he needs his bottom smacking.
And Tiger hits his shot, watches with anticipation as it flies through the air. And almost goes directly into the hole. It's 8 inches away. He just won the tournament. The crowd goes wild. Meanwhile, the announcers are trying to figure out why Tiger would make a play like that. Why shoot directly at the hole when there's water all around? If he had made the slightest error, Tiger would have tied Lehman and extended the playoff to the next hole.
That is some kind of shot there. I think a lot of that's being 21 years old, being very aggressive.
And some of you are no doubt thinking, why would he make a play like that? Because he's Tiger Woods. I recently showed my partner a career highlights video of Tiger Woods. She had never heard of him, had never seen golf. Remember, she's Colombian. By the end of the video, she was convinced Tiger Woods was a witch who could magically conjure a ball into a hole from 200 yards away, because that's what she saw. Over and over, this guy's swinging, then a tiny ball flying through the air for several seconds and jumping and spinning and rolling into a tiny hole. When we see an expert in any field, we marvel at what they're able to accomplish. When we compare our own skills, we can't help but feel insignificant. But sometimes, what seems like perfection is someone not striving for perfection, but instead working cleverly with their imperfections. Several years after this playoff, where Tiger Woods made this bold play, he relived it in his book. He explained that he was very much aware all he had to do was hit the green to play safely away from the water. In fact, that's exactly what he did. Yes, Tiger's ball almost went in the hole, but that's not where he was aiming. Besides knowing the smart strategy in this playoff situation, Tiger had noticed something during his warm-up before the playoff. His shots tended to go left. Like Tom Lehman, Tiger had pulled his ball to the left. But because Tiger was aiming to the right, he almost had a hole-in-one. This is hard to process for many who don't play golf, indeed many who do play golf. How can the greatest golfer who ever lived be missing to the left? And why would the greatest golfer who ever lived aim away from the hole? When we see greatness, this is often what's happening. Tiger was missing to the left, so he aimed right. I call it aim left because it's just less confusing than aim right. Aiming left is simply accepting you're not perfect and shooting your shot according to your tendencies. You can use this in your creative work and your habits, and yes, in golf. When you're missing to the right, aim left. When Michelangelo was hired to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling, he faced an impossible task. As if it weren't hard enough to paint 12,000 square feet of ceiling, Michelangelo wasn't a painter. He was a sculptor. He had hardly painted anything to that point. Add to that, this was fresco, which is incredibly unforgiving. You get a patch of wet plaster, to paint on each day, and once it's dry, it's literally set in stone. So, what did Michelangelo do? As Ross King, who I talked to on episode 99, explained, Michelangelo aimed left. He started with an inconspicuous part of the ceiling, one of the last places someone would look when entering the chapel, and one of the last places the Pope would look while sitting on his throne. By starting with an inconspicuous part of the ceiling, Michelangelo was free to let his fresco painting skills develop throughout the project. By the end of the project, he wasn't even transferring drawings to the ceiling and was instead just painting directly onto the plaster. Accomplished creators are always aiming left. They're always compensating for the weaknesses they know they have. Ernest Hemingway knew starting a writing session was always the hardest part, so he aimed left. He made sure to end writing sessions knowing what he was going to write next. That way, when he returned to his writing the next day, he'd have no trouble writing his first few words. Kingsley Amis did this, and Todd Henry, who I talked to on episode 109, has said he stops in the middle of a sentence. Edna Ferber built her dream house, complete with a writing study that had a beautiful view. After all that trouble, she decided that view was too distracting, so she aimed left. She pushed her desk against the only blank wall in her study so the view couldn't distract her. Somerset Maugham also faced a blank wall, and I did it a while myself. Benjamin Franklin wanted to improve his character, but couldn't focus on everything he wanted to work on at once. So he aimed left. He kept a schedule of his 13 virtues. Each week, he tried to improve at only one of those virtues, things like cleanliness, frugality, humility. By focusing on only one virtue at a time and forgetting the rest, Franklin improved his character in all 13 virtues. To aim left, take anything where you consistently miss and compensate for that miss. In The Hard to Start, I talked about the fortress fallacy. We tend to have visions that outsize our current skill level. Over and over, we start ambitious projects but fail to follow through once we realize how daunting they are. To aim left, go ahead and dream of the fortress, but first build a cottage, a smaller project that builds the same skills you'll use in the larger project. I also talked about motivational judo, which is a form of aiming left. If you struggle to get motivated, create conditions that use your own action avoidance tactics against themselves. Pavlok founder Manish Sethi built a wristband to shock himself. Sociologist Harriet Martineau knew she only needed to suffer through the first 15 minutes of writing, and she'd have the momentum to keep going. This is similar to the 10-minute hack I also talked about in The Hard to Start. In the previous episode, I talked about a way to cure shiny object syndrome by aiming left. If you know you jump from unfinished project to unfinished project, treat shipping as a skill. Turn everyday things like meals and day trips into projects. Make plans and execute. Ship the projects. Look around and you'll find many opportunities to aim left. Anywhere you aren't achieving what you want, you can find a way to direct your imperfection toward perfection, or at least near perfection, 8 inches away to be exact. One thing I've learned in over a decade as an independent creator is to invest in ideas. They really are everything. Most of them don't work out, but the ones that do can be big. I had one idea that led to a book deal and transformed my life. I had another idea that connected me with a company that later sold to Google, which brought a surprise payday. Big ideas start small, and the place I share my ideas first is my weekly newsletter. It's called Love Mondays, and each week I share a big little idea about how to break through to become a true original and make it as a creator. I also share my favorite quotes and books and tools for thought. Think of Love Mondays as like a shot of creative fuel to start off your week. There's several thousand subscribers. We're having a good time. Join Love Mondays at kdv.co/newsletter. That's kdv.co/newsletter. You might have noticed I don't have ads on Love Your Work. I haven't had them for a long time now. In fact, a big company whose name you would definitely recognize offered me money to advertise on this show recently, and I had to turn it down. Why? Because some money feels good, some money feels not as good. When I see that somebody bought one of my books, that feels good. When a company advertises on the show, it's money, but that doesn't feel quite as good. Another kind of money that feels really good is the money I get from my Patreon supporters. It feels like an honest exchange. It's a vote of confidence that they like the show. Since I myself support a number of creators on Patreon, I know it feels good to vote with my dollars and support the kind of work I would like to see in the world. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Make the kind of podcast I want to listen to and share the ideas I want to see in the world. So if you like the show, a great way to let me know is to support the show on Patreon. Even a few bucks a month helps. It really adds up over all the dedicated listeners, and it motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing. If you'd like to support the show, visit the Patreon page at patreon.com/Cadavy. You'll see the different levels and perks available. Even if you're on the fence, check out the page. Again, it's at patreon.com/Cadavy. That's patreon.com/Cadavy. Thanks for your support. Love Your Work is brought to you exclusively by our Patreon supporters, including top supporters Jeffrey Mason, Bob Rosen, and Pravin Shaker. The theme music for Love Your Work is At Sea by Dorena from the album About Everything and More, by arrangement with Deep Elm Records at deepelm.com. Love Your Work is a production of Cadavy, Inc.